What is happening, my gurus? Thank you for tuning in for another one of these videos. So obviously we've had a little bit of a turn of events towards the end of the year. And what I want to do is I want to do like we have been. I want to look at sort of the macro. I want to look at the big picture, because ultimately when it gets down to these sort of events, there's no point getting caught up in the hourly chart or the 4 hourly chart, really, because a lot of it's just absolute noise, where the chart and the market's sort of trying to find its bottoms, market's trying to prove support in different areas, and it's generally quite a lot of noise with the lower time frame. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with looking at the higher time frames here, as we did. I think it was yesterday or the day before. We took a look at the weekly chart. I'm just going to quickly open up the chart here. We obviously had a look at the weekly chart with the bull market support band in frame. So basically, like we said, we obviously want to make sure that in order to sort of be bullish and have a bullish bias, we've got to be above this support band over here. And unfortunately, we have been rejected now 3 times. So here was the first one, here was the second one, and then here was the third rejection. So we're not being accepted at all in any of these tests, which is unfortunately a little bit of a bearish sign for the short term. I would have liked to have seen this candle sort of give us the bullish engulfing sort of movement that would have come off the back of this bullish green candle, but unfortunately we were rejected. I think that for the most part, the reason for these rejections is that liquidity is really thin in the market at the moment, and what that means is that there isn't too much big money in the market at the moment, as everybody's closed and offices aren't open. And what that allows sort of whales to do, and when I talk about whales, I'm talking about people who are holding 100,000 Bitcoin or 40,000 Bitcoin or 10,000 Bitcoin or whatever the case is, guys that when they do sell, it moves the market. And what they often tend to do is they will use these low liquidity, sort of thin liquidity periods to really manipulate the market. And ultimately the goal of what they're trying to achieve is they're trying to get everybody's Bitcoin. And the reason why they're trying to do this is because Bitcoin's limited and finite supply means that there isn't enough to go around. And at the end of the day, institutions, banks, and really wealthy people want to get their hands on digital gold. A, they're not going to pay a premium for it, and B, they want your digital gold, because the truth is there just isn't enough to go around. There officially is no longer enough Bitcoin for every millionaire in the world to now own a Bitcoin, which is crazy if you think about it. So the only way these guys are going to get Bitcoin is by actually getting the retail market to sell their Bitcoin, and especially sell it at a loss, which gives them a discount. So we've got to be aware of those movements. It's not cause to panic. It's just good to be aware of the fact that this is how the market's operating. Unfortunately, we're going to have this amount of manipulation with us until such point where regulation steps in and we can start looking at a bit more of a regulated market. Because what I mean by that is that with regulation, what the regulators are going to do is they're going to most likely remove leverage from this market. And ultimately, the problem with leverage is that it's creating security issues, and it's creating issues around people losing their life's money and their life savings, etc. Because what a lot of guys are doing is they're seeing Bitcoin, they're seeing these big sort of bullish rallies where their friends are making millions of dollars, and they also want in on the action. So they keep hopping in, they're buying here. People are like retail idiots are buying up at the top here, and it's just making it so easy for these whales to absolutely just wash them out of the market. They come in, they buy at the top, they get you see these massive dumps here, and then they're like, oh, Bitcoin's a scam, I'm gonna sell, I made the biggest mistake of my life, I just lost $100,000, I'm gonna sell. And the biggest issue is that not only are they buying up here, but they're buying up here with leverage. So a lot of these exchanges like Binance, like FTX, are allowing your everyday sort of people to come and get involved on a leverage level, and it's just not going to be a good thing in the long run for both Bitcoin and for the entire cryptocurrency market, because leverage is not safe and leverage is risky. So basically just looking at the market here, we've got what I want to do first is I just want to obviously identify the bull market support band, and we can clearly see that we're being rejected from it. It's going to take some time, it's going to take some strength, but the good news is that there is quite a lot of volume in these sort of retail candles. You can see they're pretty big candles compared to how it normally is when the banks are open and the institutions like the CME are taking on a lot of the trades. So one of the things that I do want to look at here is there is a bit of an unfortunate looking situation in that this could be starting a potential head and shoulders move. It's not great. It's not good to look at. It's not nice to look at. But, one of the things that I've learned in the last year, trading crypto and being sort of deeper in the space is that, the best thing you can do for yourself and the biggest favor you can do for yourself as a trader is to not let emotions get in the way. And as much as I want us to be on this bullish move towards, 100K, which is what everybody sort of wants, we've got to start looking at the wood from the trees and just realizing that there is the potential for a move in, towards the end of Q1, which would be in March or so, for us to go back down and test, sort of the sub 30 range. Good news is that we still have quite a lot of room to go before I would get concerned. I mean, here you can see there's quite a strong support. I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin does come back to test 45K, 45.5. It wouldn't concern me in the least, because you can see that there's quite strong support here and we could potentially continue up from there. But I do want us to be aware of the fact that, this isn't going to, it's not going to be bullish forever. It can't always go only up, and we will need to consolidate, these massive moves at some point. So we obviously had this sort of consolidation here off the back of that move. We've now got this move, and we will probably need to consolidate that too before moving up and out and getting those sort of 90K, 100K Bitcoin predictions coming through, which could be towards the end of next year. That's my personal prediction. I think that we're going to have, sort of this major rally in Q1 to the end of Q1 to the end of March, where we could be looking at something along the lines of this type of thing, 60, maybe 65, maybe even 70K before some sort of collapse around March or so, and that would obviously take us then out and through. I will cover sort of bull and bear periods in a different video, but I just wanted us to look at this and just be aware of what's going on. So that's the weekly chart. I now want to flip over to the daily time frame and just sort of look at the moving averages before we carry on. Let's just turn off the bull market support indicator, turn on the moving averages, and take a look at what we're looking at over here. Sorry, I think that's just a little bit of a marker there. Cool. So unfortunately, we've obviously had another cross here of the 20-day moving average and the 200-day moving average. This has been our biggest support so far, and obviously it's there's definitely been a bit of a collapse below that, unfortunately. So now we're looking at this sort of crossover again. We'll be hoping for something along the lines of that once again, but there's no telling what's going to happen in the market now. I do believe that we could be seeing a bit of a local bottom around here. It does make sort of sense, and I will still remain bullish for as long as we're above sort of 46K, 45.5 over here. You can see that sort of the bottom of the range. Below that, I'd start to get concerned. It's very possible that Bitcoin might want to come and test these things before moving along. I think it's silly to just think that we can always go up and that it's always totally bullish. But I do think that it's the end of the year. A lot of institutions are closing. They need to show their profits, and they will probably try and get us up back above these levels before the end of the year. But obviously only time will tell. So that's sort of the moving average situation. We can quickly just look at the lower time frames. I'm just going to open that up anyway, just so that we can sort of look at a micro outlook and a bit of a micro perspective. We are seeing some sort of a workaround here. I just want to quickly open up the correct chart where we can look at the sort of patterns. I'll get into alts once the market finds confidence again. I think it's a little bit futile looking at alts at the moment, just because everything's beating. But one good thing to note actually is to look at FTM here and see how that's held through. So FTM is holding through this time, much like Matic held through in the last sort of crash, where we came down. Which was over here in this sort of region here. So, throughout this whole move, Matic really held its own, and it still is pretty high. It was at 1.8 at the bottom of this move, and then it's synced up above $2, which is now what's seeming to happen to Phantom as well, which is quite great. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that this whole idea of like one alt season is probably not going to be the case anymore. It's probably going to be multiple different alt seasons in different narratives, meaning that NFT is a narrative, security is a narrative, privacy tokens are a narrative, metaverse is a narrative, infrastructure tokens like Ripple, like Link, like Polkadot are going to be a narrative in and of themselves. And of course, we've got gaming as well. So I think it's all going to be narrative based. I think it's going to be smart to start investing based on the narratives. And then there's something else that I also want to cover, which is probably going to be my investment thesis for the coming year. And what that's going to look like once we do sell off at the top is, or at least we, trying to time the top as best as possible, although that is somewhat, a bit of a pipe dream at the end of the day to try and time the top. it would have been really hard to call this as the top when everything was looking sort of bullish at that point. But yeah, basically, it's going to be about narratives. And what I'm going to be looking to do is I'm going to be looking to move everything into sort of stable coins at the next top that we do get, hopefully above 60K, and then basically stake those stable coins throughout the sort of range market period while things are sideways. Stake the stable coins, wait for one of these major dumps, and then deploy capital up, ride the wave back up, and then do it all over again. That's pretty much what the smart money is doing, and it also explains a lot of these sort of leverage shakeouts. Of course, I will remain invested in a lot of the protocols that I believe in. I'm not going to change my position in them, but I do have quite a lot of diversity in my portfolio, where there's a lot of tokens that I think can rather just be kept in stable coins, and then using that capital to sort of deploy at the bottom, and then sort of catch the wave up to the top. So just on the micro and the sort of 4-hourly chart that we're looking at here, we are starting to see some respite here. We are starting to see some possible, these are all doji candles, by the way. And what doji candles represent is they generally represent one of two things. It's either a slowdown in the trend or it's a reversal. So I'm not seeing anything, any sort of reversal just yet. This candle here, these two candles over here are bearish engulfing, which means we could still see a bit more bearishness. But the good news is that we are looking here at some pretty solid action on the RSI. So we're not getting a turnaround. What I'd like to see is sort of it come back up here and give us a movement up. What was quite interesting to notice is that we had this sort of collapse where the RSI was not overbought at all. Generally a sort of collapse would have happened from this area down, and it happened within the purple band. So it's very strange. It's not something I don't think anybody could see coming. I think any trader that tells you they saw this coming would be lying. I'm sure a lot of guys were taking profits up at the top here, but nobody really knew that it would be a local top at least. So I'll be waiting to see what happens. I'll be starting to look for, sort of chart patterns and seeing what's available and what's there for us to look at. Unfortunately, Bitcoin did make a lower low from here, so that's not exactly the best sign, but I do think that we should get some sort of a breather around here and maybe a continuation up. It is going to be a lot slower. It is going to take a lot more time. It's going to go sideways for a bit. Unfortunately, that is just the case in the market. We're in the most volatile market on earth, but the good news is that volatility means money, volatility means gains, and what we need to do is just be sort of on top of the market and in tune with the market, and ready to move when the market moves. So that's about it. If anyone has any questions, of course I'll be in the chat all day. Please just let me know whatever you guys want to know. I am still working on, of course, our technical analysis Bible. It's taking me a bit of time, but I think that when it does come out, it'll be absolutely worth it. So yeah, have a great day, everybody, and let me know if you guys have any questions.